Hello and welcome! This is Mouse Gunner, and I'm here with Hearts of Iron 4, a brand new grand strategy game by Paradox Interactive. This has a World War II theme, and I have played a couple of the Hearts of Iron games, 2 and 3, and I am somewhat of a World War II history buff, so I have been definitely looking forward to the launch of this game, and I have, for my first playthrough, a special mission that I'm going to task myself with. So I'm going to start with the 1936 start here. So this is before the war is actually launched, and we have a few years before it is actually going to launch. And I'm going to be playing as France. This is going to be Operation Enduring Francedom, where I attempt to make France survive the attack of Germany during World War II. And I'm not going to be capitulating. At least that is the mission. But we have a lot of things against us. First off, we are a democracy, which gives us a lot of penalties to what we can do. For example, if we were to go to Hitler here with the German Reich, you'll see that they don't have nearly as many penalties with their government type, and they also have some also bonuses here. Green denoting that they're good things. Whereas France, on the other hand, has a lot of penalties. For instance, Victors of the Great War not only reduces how much recruitable population I have, but it also makes land doctrine research time much greater. I also have a disjointed government, which gives me less political power, as well as reducing my national unity. And I also have a modifier for protected by the Maginot Line. Now, this is both a bonus and a penalty. It gives me the ability to plan more than normal, but it makes that planning take longer. So I have a more static force that takes a little bit longer to set up. We're going to go ahead and select this country. So we're going to be starting here. Now, there's going to be a lot to keep track of with France, as France has a lot of colonies. First, we have colonies over here in Africa. We have some holdings in the Middle East, and we have holdings in Asia, for instance, Indochina here. So there are going to be a lot of distractions out there for us. We even have holdings over here in South America, and I think a couple holdings in the Caribbean as well. But really our focus is making sure that France does not fall. I'm going to be playing this on regular difficulty, which has no modifiers. If I were to play this on recruit, I would have some modifiers, as you can see here, and veteran would have penalties. I will not be playing with Iron Man mode, just so that I don't have any complications with recordings that will wipe any progress that I've made. And I will be going with the historical AI focus, which what this means is that the AI will be trying to play along historical lines as much as possible. So we have France selected. We've already talked about the penalties that I will have. So let's go ahead and jump into the game here. All right, we've loaded in. Now, I have not done a whole lot with this game. I mostly just played the tutorial, so there's going to be a lot that I have not really grasped yet, and we're going to be learning as we go. But first, let's go ahead and, like a lot of other Paradox games, you have these tooltips here or notifications that pop up letting you know of things that you really should pay attention to. And one of the things we're going to want to set is our national focus. And this is set up specifically for France. Taking a look at things, each of the more noteworthy countries have individualized focus trees, whereas the more minor nations, for instance, I popped open Venezuela over here just to take a look at what their tree was like, and it was a much more generic one. And then I popped open Iran over here, and it was the exact same tree. So a lot of the minor nations have a pretty generalized focus tree, but for us, it's going to be specific to us. So there's a number of things I can focus on here, and each of these things are going to give me a benefit down the line. Now, I did talk about penalties that we had, and some of these focuses will actually get rid of those penalties. For instance, if I am able to go down the government reform tree, and I can go a number of different ways, and whenever you have an exclamation point, you more or less are choosing two divergent paths, and once you choose that path, the other path is pretty much going to be blocked off. So if I support the left over here, I'm going to be going more towards the communist side of things, and I am no longer going to be able to support the right and go more fascist leaning. Of course, I could go towards support the status quo instead and go the more traditional route of France, which is probably the route I'm going to end up taking. But here, even here, we have a divergence. We could either go with Britain, or we could go with the little Entente here, which is more a faction of France unto itself. But if I were to go down this tree, eventually I get to defensive stratagems here, and we can see that this will remove the national spirit disjointed government, which is one of the negative penalties that I had. So that would be a good thing that I would eventually want to do. But if I were to go down, for instance, the support left, I think that you also eventually can remove that same disjointed government. Yeah, right here. Once we get to national mobilization, you can see remove national spirit disjointed government. So there are a number of ways to get rid of disjointed government, but I'm going to have to go down the government reform branch to be able to do that. We also have specific military focuses. So we have Navy focus, which is going to allow us to do a number of things that allow us to get research moved along a little bit quicker in certain areas. But again, we have some divergence here. We can either go down a carrier focus or we can go down a capital ship focus. We have a similar thing over here with our air focus. We could either go with fighters or bombers. Now, my idea for what I'd like to do, as I said, I'd like to go down the status quo. Kind of play France as it was, kind of. There's going to be some things I'd change, and a lot of that's going to be historical things. For instance, if I go down here, this is more of an infantry focus or army focus. I can either go with an aggressive focus, which would be very different from what France did, or I could go down the defensive focus. I'm probably going to go down the defensive focus branch, but one thing I am going to change is I may very much go down this line here and get the extended Maginot Line. Now, historically speaking, the Maginot Line, a lot of you have probably heard of, is a system of fortifications along the French and German border here. But one thing that did happen is that France stopped the fortifications right here. So Metz here, and I am going to pronounce things probably wrong, not the correct French pronunciation. I do not speak French, so don't expect that. In any case, Metz over here is the limit of the Maginot Line. Beyond that, there is no Maginot Line. And the reason that happened is, historically, there was an agreement with Belgium that the Belgians were supposed to finish a system of fortifications that went up here. But that never happened because of the Great Depression. The Belgians didn't have the money to bring that out. So what we're going to do with this focus is more than likely pick this. And as you can see, this does have the effect you would think. It makes the Belgians not too happy with us. But part of Operation Enduring Francedom is also known as Screw the Belgians, because we're not going to rush in and try and defend the Belgians like the France did historically. Instead, we're going to extend the Maginot Line and wall them off and leave them to the Germans, pretty much, and worry about our own stuff. At least that's my idea of what I'd like to do. So just to say very quickly and simply what happened historically, the agreement with France and Belgium is that the French would help the Belgians out if Germany were to attack them. But once France declared the independence of Poland over here, and then Germany declared war on Poland, which set off World War II, the Belgians kind of held on to the hope that they could remain neutral, and they did not allow the French forces into their territory. So the French had to hang back here and wait for Germany to declare war on Belgium before they could come in. But unfortunately for the French, as they brought their forces in, the Germans pushed through, was able to break through and kind of cut off the supply of the French, and the rest was history. And the Germans, who were getting close to Paris, caused the French to capitulate. So that's something we're going to try to avoid, and to do that, I'm going to try and wall off the rest of the Maginot Line. Another thing I'd like to do is combat our national unity here. Now, we already have a -10 modifier because of the disjointed government, but we also can improve that with some of our choices here. So I'm not exactly sure what focus I'd like to go with first. Some of these government reform things will really help us out. For instance, I get some political power if I choose this, and eventually I can start getting that unity to be a little bit better. Now, from what I understand, the national unity does affect the willingness of the people to continue with the war. So with our unity being so low, it's going to be a lot easier for the capitulation to come. So we definitely want to raise that up. So some of these government reforms will help us with that. And I am probably going to go down this branch rather than go with Britain. If I go with Britain, I will join the Allies, but if I go this way, I can create my own faction, but I also gain more national unity, which I wouldn't gain if I went with Britain instead. But I could also go down this tree, and this might be where I want to start, because this will improve my economy, giving me factories, and will allow me to get a extra research slot. And that is another thing that we are kind of a little bit worse off with. We only get 3 research slots, where some of the other major nations have a minimum of 4. For instance, the tutorial has you be Italy, and they have 4 slots. So Italy has more research slots than we do. That's kind of not great. So with my focus, I think we probably want to get that extra research slot as quick as possible. And these do take 70 days to do. Now, we have 3 years. So each of these taking 70 days. We can get this done before the first year is over, going through 4 slots. So let's start with metropolitan France. Of course, we could go Algerian France instead, but I'm going to focus on maintaining defense of France itself. So we're going to do that instead. We're going to start with this. And now I have to choose my research. And I'm going to be more economically focused, so industry and engineering is probably where I'm going to start with a lot of my research. So first thing I'm going to pick is the engineering research here, electronic mechanical engineering, which gives us a research time. We definitely need that, considering that we have less research slots than normal. I'm also going to go into industry here, and the first thing I'm going to select is the basic maintenance tools here, which give us a production efficiency cap bonus. So we're going to research that. And then the other thing I'm going to do is construction time bonuses. So we get construction 1 here gives us construction speed of 10%, which is going to allow us to build up our economy quickly. Now, one thing about how research works is you don't want to research things ahead of time. So we're in 1936. As long as we're researching things within 1936, there is no penalty to our research time. But if I try and research something that is in 37, for instance, you see that we have time to research 353 days, and it's given us all this red information there that's telling us that this is ahead of time, giving us a big penalty. So, and the more ahead of time it is, the more that penalty is. So we'll go with this one. So we're very much industry focused right now, or economically focused right now, although this will give us research. All right, so now let's go with the industry part. So we're going to want to go to construction here. Now, one thing I could do is I could build the forts myself, but considering that that is actually in one of our focuses to extend the Maginot Line, and we might get those forts for free, I don't think that's something I'm going to do. And we also could get forts down here as well, from what I saw with the focus tree. I could do fortifications down here, as it is possible that Spain may get involved in the war. Now, that depends on whether nationalist Spain wins or not, and we don't know if they will, because the Spanish Civil War has not started yet, and it has not been concluded. But one thing we're never going to want is civilian factories, which is going to give us more capacity here. So right now we have 36 civilian factories. We're going to want to build that up. I think I'm going to start where we don't have a lot of factories, and we'll be a little bit further away from the enemy line. So we'll put one here, here, and we'll kind of focus over in the southwest here. So I've got 5 queued up. Now this is the cap of how many factories you can have in a area, so we may hit that soon. I guess we'll go ahead and put a couple over here because there isn't anything over there. And these places are vulnerable, and we might build up later. But I'm going to go ahead and just queue up everything down here in the south for now. And I'll also grab a couple in here because there's none there. All right, so I think that's a decent start, getting a lot of factories queued up here. Now, we're only going to be able to work on these 2 for now. because not all of our factories are actually usable right now. We need to produce consumer goods, and we also, well, right now we're using 23 for the construction. We're also going to probably trade away some of those factories because we are down on oil. So we need oil. We are surplus in everything else. Now, the one thing I could tell is it doesn't look like you can actually trade away surplus from what I can tell, unless somebody actually contacts you with that request. And what you do is you actually trade away factories to get where you need. So we're going to go with oil here. And what's going on here? So free trade, resources to market. All right. What do we count as? I'm kind of curious with that. Is France even listed here? I doubt it, because this is who we trade to. I think the United States would probably be a good one. United Kingdom has some oil, but not a lot, whereas the United States has a ton of oil available. We'll go ahead and select the United States here. And we only need 9, but with one factory that wouldn't give us enough. 2 factories give us actually a little bit of a surplus. So we'll go ahead and send that offer over to them. And all right. Just seeing if there's anything else that affects us. We have plenty of convoys for this, so we'll go ahead and send that off. We'll have to have them accept it, I think, before we actually get it. But that should get us all the resources we need. Although, actually, we might need more once we start the production queue, so maybe I should have waited on that. We could always do another deal, though. It's not that big of a deal. So let's go to production here. All right, so we already have things queued up. And as a matter of fact, if I go into the research tree here, what do we actually already have? I'm not going to replace what I'm doing. We already have a couple tanks lined up here and research. We don't have a heavy tank, though, but that might come later. So this guy here compared to this guy, I'm going to assume... Oh, I can't open both at once. So we've got Breakthrough 36, Soft Attack 14 versus 2610. I'm going to assume that it just across the board better stats. Yeah, okay, so we're going to want to produce that. So what about aircraft? Where are we? All right, so we're not up to date on fighters, but we are on a lot of other things. Just no heavy fighter, strategic bomber, or normal fighters. So it's good to start with some tech. All right, so let's go into production here. So we are producing the light tanks, and we are producing the correct light tanks. And we're producing some motorized stuff, infantry equipment, support equipment. Is all our factories being used? Yes, we don't actually have that many military factories. We're not using all of our naval dockyards, though. Let's take a look at what we already have being worked on. So we have submarines being produced. I'm not sure why we would produce an older tech of submarine if we have a higher tech. Let's take a look at that, actually, in the research tree. We didn't take a look at the naval aspect of things. So, naval-wise, we have some things at level 2 or the 1936 tech. We don't have destroyers there yet or battleships there. And we do have level 2 submarines. I don't know, again, why we would do level 1 submarines if we have level 2. Seems like wasted production. Alright, well, any case, I think I'm going to actually cancel this guy. Unless it's already... Oh, it's already got partial progress, maybe. I guess we'll let it go for now. Although I could reduce how many they're supposed to produce and bring that up to correspond. And we'll put one of the dockyards on that submarine. So we're building a destroyer, a battleship, and a light cruiser right now. All right. We have nobody in basic training, and we already did something about the resources, so let's take a look at the recruit. All right, so our infantry is set up mostly with just raw infantry, and then we have a little bit of artillery. I don't think we can actually... We could do anti-air here, or a recon company. But we don't actually have any experience to modify this unit yet. I just wanted to see what its composition was. Alright, so I guess I'll go ahead and train up a division here of infantry. So this is a mechanized unit, it looks like. We've got some light tanks and some motorized infantry. What's the difference between this here? So this is a purely tank unit that only has tanks, no infantry. Okay. Well, we'll just have the infantry train for now. And we'll produce a few of those. And we'll have them pop out. And I think the only place we can deploy them is actually in France. Just zoom out here. So yeah, we can't put them anywhere but France. So we'll just have them pop out in over here. So they'll pop out near Paris. Okay. So our production is more or less in order. We just have to wait for that trade deal to happen. And then we'll be good to go. All right, let's go ahead and start time here. And I think the deal is now through, so we've got what oil we need. We can see that now we have a surplus rather than a shortage. And currently, the only thing really going on is Italy is at war with Ethiopia down here, which they're sure to win. Just a question of how long it takes. Now, another thing I probably want to do is I want to set up my armies. So we've got an army in here. That's going to be the Maginot Line army. As a matter of fact, I'm going to... Are there no troops in Metz? There we go. And what is the... And the fortifications. So these are full up. Well, it's no surprise. It's the Maginot Line. I wonder if we have fortifications anywhere else. So France... I mean, the French-Italian border is, as far as I can tell, totally unfortified. And the Spanish border is also unfortified, it looks like. So the only fortifications we have are the Maginot Line itself. And... I'm trying to create an army here. I don't want these guys to be part of it, though. So, why don't I do this and deselect Those two. Okay. And then we do an army. And commander. Let's see what our commanders are like. Oh, we actually have decent commanders. So, field marshals have no unit limits, but generals do. I think we should assign a general to the Maginot Line as... I don't think I'm going to have more than 24. If I do, I can always assign somebody different. So what do we've got? Reconnaissance. Armor speed. That's not going to play in... Okay, so we have 2 panzer leaders. We don't need that. We could recruit somebody else as well. Alright, so this guy has a max entrenchment, which might be good. Actually. So all of these guys, all of these marshals would actually be great on the Maginot Line. So we'll pick the most skilled one. And we'll set up their front line to be pretty much the Maginot Line. Oop. That's not what I wanted to do. All right. Come on. Oh, there we go. Drawing, for some reason, didn't seem to want to work, but there we go. And I will rename them to the line. That way I know who they are. Okay. And that will probably be extended once we get the Maginot Line extended, depending on whether or not that even happens. And I think the rest of the guys I'm just going to have unassigned for now, as it's not really all that important. They'll eventually work themselves back out, I think. All right. And political power is going to be very slow as long as we have disjointed government. You know, honestly, the right move might have been to go down the government line as fast as possible, but that research slot is so tempting. We're just going to be a little bit slow, I guess, in 36. Guess I could speed things up. We're not at war. I could also set up more of the air forces as well. So currently, our fighters are a little bit behind in tech, at least as far as that goes. All right, well, you know what? I'll mess with this later and set up the air wings. Again, it's not necessarily all that important. We are producing, as a matter of fact, are we even producing fighters? We're not. We're not producing any aircraft of any type. That might be something we want to change later, but we don't have that many military factories, which is why the focus branch that I'm going down will probably help quite a bit because we gain some from that. I also gain civilian factories too, so this will definitely help out. Oh. Yeah, the line's messed up. I gotta fix that. How do I, There we go. That should do it. All right, you know what? I may have to cancel this because I don't think the front line's set up correctly. All right, we'll just redo it. All right. Make an army. Set you up there. And give you a general, which is going to be one of the 2 field marshals. All right. There they go. I'm gonna have to get used to that drawing thing. All right, in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is, I think, a good point to put a cut. This is Mouse Gunner, signing out.